Dear students, it is the second paper of forensic science and the first module. After studying this module, you shall be able to learn what is criminology, comprehend various definitions of crime and criminology. First, we shall start with an introduction to criminology. Criminology, it is derived from Latin word crimen, means accusation, and Greek word logia. It is regarded as the systematic study of the nature, extent, causes, control, and prevention of criminal behavior in both the individual and the society. Criminology is an interdisciplinary field in the behavioral sciences, based upon the research of sociologists with regard to the sociology of deviance, psychologists and psychiatrists, social anthropologists, and also the law. Criminology can also be understood as the scientific study of crime as a social phenomena. It can also be sketched as a science that deals with different aspects of human behavior that violates criminal law. It is also defined as a subdivision of knowledge which embraces etiology of criminal behavior, response of the society to crime, control of crime, and the correction of criminals. The term criminology's origin can be traced back to the French anthropologist Paul Topinard, whose major work appeared in 1879. He used the corresponding French term criminology. In the 18th and 19th centuries, however, the emphasis was on the reforms of criminal law and not on the causation of crime. Most of the scholars were worried with the philanthropic aspects in dealing with criminals and also in reforming severe criminal laws. After the first quarter of the 20th century, huge progress was brought in the field of criminology. In 1885, Italian sociologist Raffaele Garofalo embraced Topinard's term criminology and defined it as criminologia, a science that studies crimes. Sutherland and Casey in 1947 defined criminology as the body of knowledge regarding delinquency and crime as social phenomena. Within its scope, it includes the process of creating laws, of breaking laws, and reacting towards the breaking of the laws. They further pointed that the society regards certain undesirable acts as crime. The people know this, but they still continue in carrying out criminal behavior. Society checks it by punishing and treating criminals. It also adopts measures to prevent crime. For them, criminology comprises of three principal branches: sociology of crime, criminal etiology, and penology. The picture shows the three principal divisions of criminology. Sociology of crime is an attempt to systematically analyze the conditions under which criminal law develops and also an explanation of variations in the policies and procedures used in the administration of justice. Criminal etiology. It is an effort at scientific and systematic investigation of the causes of crime. Next branch is penology. It is a branch which is primarily concerned with controlling of crime. In India, study of criminology started way back in the year 1940 by imparting education to the jail officers at the Jail Officers Training School, Lucknow. Later, criminology became popular and came to be taught in several universities. Criminology, whether it is a science. A question is often raised as to whether criminology is a science or not. The answer will be determined by the use to which we want to put criminology to. There are two schools of sociology. The positive school, founded by Auguste Comte, visualized sociology as an instrument which could be used as an instrument for reorganizing human life. The German school of sociology dwelt on lines opposite to Comte. Max Weber regarded sociology as value-free, that it does not give answer as to how people should behave. According to this approach, a science cannot be value-oriented, and the purpose of scientific sociology is to understand the social events and not to suggest value-oriented solutions. It appears, therefore, that criminology can be a science if the only aim is to study crime, criminal law and prisons, etc. The advocates of the German school therefore conclude that studies of criminal and prisons will never tell us how we ought to treat the criminal anymore. Also, science is based on the hypothesis that the biases and values of an observer can be relatively controlled so that a reasonable degree of objectivity is possible. Horton and Hunt has elaborated certain characteristics of the scientific observations in 1984, which are as follows. Scientific observation is based upon verifiable evidences. Scientific observation is accurate, that is, facts are described as they are without any extrapolation. Scientific observation is precise, that is, the observer precisely refers to the measurement or the degree. Scientific observation is systematic. Scientific observation is recordable. Scientific observation is objective, that is, observation is unaffected by the observer's own beliefs, values and attitudes. Scientific observations are made by trained observers. With such an idea of science and scientific method, criminology can be referred as a science because it utilizes the method that is defined as science. Now we shall proceed with the methods and techniques in criminology. While scientific methods are basically same for all the sciences, scientific techniques differ. For techniques are the specialized ways in which scientific methods are applied to a particular problem. Therefore, all or each branch of science develops a sequence of techniques which shows the body of material studies. In order to study criminal behavior, criminologists usually use survey method, case study methods and statistical methods. Occasionally, experimental method is also used. First, we shall study the survey method. In the survey method, the facts are collected by putting questions to a large number of audiences under scientific controls. Three tools often used under this technique are as follows: questionnaire, interview guide and the schedule. The informant fills out a questionnaire personally, while a trained investigator fills out a schedule. Questions in both are pre-structured. An interview guide consists of only points on which questions are put to the informants. It does not have structured questions. These tools have their drawbacks. The informants may not be able to comprehend a question. They may choose an answer even though they may not have any strong opinion on the matter. They may give an conventional answer rather than the real one, or they may be influenced by the way the question is worded. Even though these tools may have a margin of error, yet they are very useful, for they are more reliable than any guesswork, while non-participant observation may be of use in criminology. The use of participant observation is almost impractical. In participant observation, the observer seeks insight by wishing to take part in whatsoever is being studied, and thus this is not workable in criminological studies. Second method is case study method. It is a method of studying social phenomena using an intensive and deep study of an individual case. This method provides an opportunity for a thorough analysis of many specific details that are often overlooked in other methods. The investigator delves into the social, medical, psychological and sometimes psychiatric and mental backgrounds of an individual. Attention is given to the attitude and the perception as well as to the behavior. The theory of W.I. Thomas, which says if individual define situations as real, they are real in their consequences. Information is collected and compiled from different families, school records, neighbor, peers, work groups and other sources. Numerous interviews with the individuals are also made. This methodology is based on the assumption that the case being referred to is typical of the cases of a certain type, so that through rigorous analysis, overviews may be made which will be applicable to other cases of the similar type. The greatest value of case study is in the suggestion of hypotheses that can then be tested by other methods. Next is statistical methods. Statistical methods enable us to reduce a complex mass of data to simple units of measurements. For example, a criminologist can collect data concerning to the period for which criminals remain under trial and are detained in prisons without any work, pointing out to lack of effectiveness of such captivity in the reformation of the criminals. By the use of statistical functions like coefficient of correlation, a criminologist can also compare the figures of one group with those of the other groups in order to reveal potential relationships. Next is experimental method. The physical scientists often use the experimental method, but it is not as adaptable to be used in the social sciences because control is more difficult to be achieved in such methods. Using the experimental method in criminology proves to be an insurmountable problem to the investigator, as he has to encounter the condition of selecting equivalent groups. Thus, the difficulty of equalizing the experimental and control groups, the trouble in getting sufficient data, the effort of isolating all variables that are not being tested are only some of the problems which make the use of the experimental design in crime research doubtful. All the above mentioned methods have their own advantages and disadvantages, and as such, no one method can be described as superior to the other. Each one is important for its own purpose. Next is schools of criminology. Two schools of criminology with diverse views on the nature and causation of crime and theories of punishment have been in existence since the 18th and the 19th centuries. The first, which was established by Jeremy Bentham and Cesar Beccaria, is known as the classical school, while the other is known as the positivist school. C. Lombroso, R. Garofalo and E. Ferri of the Italian school established the positivist school in the 19th century. First, we shall discuss about classical school. The classical theory, which dwelt in the mid-18th century, was based on the utilitarian philosophy, normative ethics usually defined as magnifying happiness and decreasing pain and suffering. The picture shows the classical school philosophers. These classical school philosophers maintained that people have free will to choose how to act. Deterrence is based upon the notion of human being as who seeks pleasure and avoids pain. Punishment can deter people from committing crime, as cost or the penalties overweights the benefits, and the brutality of punishment should be proportional to the crime. The more rapid and certain the punishment, the more operational it is in deterring criminal behavior. The classical school of thoughts came about at the time when major reform in penology, that is, study of punishments and of crime and prison management occurred, with prison dwelt as a form of punishment. Next school is positivist school. Positivist school philosophers E. Ferri, C. Lombroso and Garofalo. They presume that criminal behavior is caused by internal as well as external factors, which are beyond the control of an individual. Positivism can further be broken up into three segments, depending upon the factors affecting the behavior of an individual. That is biological, sociological, and psychological. The main points of difference between the two schools are as follows. While the classical school defined crime in legal terms, the positive school rejected the legal definition and adopted the social definition. The classical school believed in the free will theory, that is, a person commits crime out of his free will and he has right to choose between right and wrong conduct. The positivist school, on the other hand, maintained that under a particular set of conditions, a person would bound to commit a criminal act and hence is not a free agent to choose between the different options. The classical school believed in the different effect of punishments. The positivist school, however, stood for the replacement of punishment by scientific methods for the protection of the society. The classical school focused its attention on the crime, while the positivist school laid greater emphasis on the personality of the offender. The contribution of the positivist school to the contemporary criminological and penological thought notwithstanding, the basic structure of criminal law continues to be based on the theories propounded by the classical school. Even today, it is crime, which continues to be the focus of attention agencies of criminal law administration, though some changes have been effected to emphasize the personality of the offenders. Now we shall conclude this module with the summary. Criminology is derived from the Latin word crimen, accusation, and Greek word logia. Is known as a systematic study of the nature, extent, causes, control, and prevention of criminal behavior in both the individual and the society. Criminology is an interdisciplinary field in the behavioral sciences. Based upon the research of sociologists with regard to the sociology of deviance, psychologists and psychiatrists, social anthropologists, and also the law. The term criminology's origin can be traced back to the French anthropologist Paul Topinard, whose major work appeared in 1879. He used the corresponding French term criminology. Criminology comprises of three principal subdivisions, namely sociology of crime, criminal etiology, and penology. The criminologists usually use survey method, case study methods, and statistical methods in studying criminal behavior. They also use experimental method to study the behavior at times. Two schools of criminology with diverse views on the nature and causation of crime and theories of punishment have been in existence since the 18th and 19th centuries. The first, which was established by Jeremy Bentham and Cesar Beccaria, is known as the classical school, while the other, known as the positivist school by C. Lombroso, R. Garofalo, and E. Ferri of the Italian school, established the positivist school in the 19th century. The contribution of the positivist school to the contemporary criminological and penological thought, notwithstanding the basic structure of criminal law, continues with the basis on the theories propounded by the classical school. Even today, it is crime which continues to be the focus of attention of the agencies of criminal law administration, though some changes have been effected to emphasize the personality of the offenders.